All right, and welcome to this video series where we're going to be taking a look at the work orders specifically. This first video is going to be a general overview, and then we're going to get into things like how to set up your requests, your service overview, your work order overview, and your work order screens for best practices. We're going to look at navigating those, how to do planning and scheduling. But during this initial video, we're just going to be taking at a general 30,000-foot overview over your work orders, which will include things like what do we use work orders for? How do we typically categorize those work orders, and what kind of data can they give us? And then the general workflow of the work order program, work order module inside Express Maintenance. So when we're talking about work orders, what we're talking about inside Express Maintenance is the maintenance tab. Then we have the work orders. Then we have this work order tab. That tab then opens up into 4 additional tabs. Now, the way we define work orders in Express Maintenance, they can be really one of 2 categorized work orders, and that is planned and demand. So if you look at your work order data tab, you'll see that we have a category for work orders as demand and planned, and that's because all preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance, or demand work orders will eventually flow into this work order screen. So we'll get into the details of how to enter those work orders, how to create services, how to build your PM program, how to plan and schedule based off what category of work orders that you guys are working with. But in this video, we're just sticking to generalization. And so the reason work orders are so important is because they are really the mechanism by which you are creating all of your service history for all of your assets. And the service history, whether it's the time or date that the work order gets started and completed, or your downtime entries, or your estimated labor or your actual labor, your parts quantity, parts purchasing, all of that, when it's properly entered onto a work order, creates a detailed service history that can generate for you information that will help you with your key performance indicators and your key performance indicator reports, like mean time between failure. Mean time between failure is a record. It's a report that's based on a work order history that includes the last completed service, demand service on a work order, which is associated with a piece of equipment, to the next time that piece of equipment fails. And once you have more than one record, you can start to track your mean time between failure. That's why it's so important that you track those your demand services inside Express Maintenance if you want to be able to know how often that equipment is failing and have an average. You also have your mean time to repair, or some people like to call it mean time to respond. You want to know how long it's taking you from the time that a requester submits a work order request to the time that the mechanic actually starts working on it. That data is made up of the create date within Express Request and the started time on the work order. You have your root cause analysis data. You have parts and labor cost to equipment, downtime, parts purchasing and parts receiving, vendor labor management, and many, many more different kinds of reports and data that you're going to need. And it all comes from your work order service history. Now, some people think, well, that's a lot of data to enter into a work order. But when you have it all, when the system is set up properly, it should take you no more than 30 seconds to enter a work order and maybe 60 seconds to complete it if you have a lot of notes that you're taking. So, and there's ways to mitigate the amount of notes that you need to add. So when it comes to work orders, it really shouldn't take that long. If it's taking you a long time, if you're having to complete way too many work orders, there's probably something not right in the setup. And we can help you with that. So when like I mentioned, we have 2 different categories of work orders. We have both your demand and planned. And within Express Maintenance, all of your demand work orders are going to come from 2 places. It's going to come from a request, or it's going to come from a manually entered work order. And your requests inside Express Maintenance are simply a record of requests that have been submitted from Express Request. Now, Express Maintenance, as you may or may not know, is a server-based software. And so you're looking at the Express Maintenance icon here. And over here, you have your Express Request module. This module right here is specifically for your production staff, your office staff, anybody who's not in maintenance, and those folks who should not be accessing maintenance management software. Then they would you would want to give them access to Express Request. And this is a very easy to fill out form. We're going to get into this later. But once that form has been filled out, that request goes into your request tab. And this is where you can prioritize, categorize, communicate back and forth with the requester or supervisor, and then actually convert this into a work order. And again, we're going to get into that in much more detail later. The other way that you enter a demand work order is through your work order data tab. And that's just as simple as inserting a record. Pick your unit, pick your start time, enter all your details. We'll get into that again later, but that's how you enter that demand record. Now, if it's going to be a planned work order, again, under the category we have planned and proactive, 99% of the time, that's going to come from your service overview. And the service overview is simply a reflection of your services that you have assigned to equipment. So here's the equipment tab. We go to this log pusher here. We can look at the services tab and see what services have been assigned, their labor estimate, their parts, all of that detail. Whatever is put onto here will show up inside your service overview. And this is where all of those services that have come due based on the filters that I have selected here. And again, we'll get into this in the service overview video, but this is where you'll see all of those and convert them into work orders. So everything ends up going to a work order. And once the requests have been worked through and turned into work orders, and the services have been worked through and turned into work orders, everything shows up on the work order overview. And so it's important that you guys understand how the flow of this works, but the actual execution we're going to get into in the next video. So if you have any questions, again, always contact Express Maintenance, and we look forward to working with you.